Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be making Veterans Day cards using products from Honeybee Stamps. I'll be using their Americana pattern paper and two of their stamp sets, Land of the Free and Because of the Brave. I have the stamps and coordinating dies, but I'll only be using the stamp set. The products were all released earlier in the year for Independence Day, but I knew they would be perfect for Veterans Day cards as well. I love the vintage look of the Americana paper pad, and the nice thing about Honeybee Stamps paper collections, they're a larger size, 6 inches by 8.5 inches. If you make A2 size cards, you can get 2 backgrounds from one sheet of paper, but if you make larger cards, 5x7 slimline, this paper pad will still work. It includes 24 sheets of double-sided pattern papers, and the designs are so beautiful. Some of them are on the larger side, like this flower. There are a few designs that would work better for Independence Day, but I think most of them will also work for Veterans Day, since they have more of a patriotic feel. The paper collection includes a few tone-on-tone patterns, plus several wood grain designs. And I love the look of wood grain pattern paper. With the larger size of the paper pad, it'll be easy to mass produce a bunch of cards. Every year, I need about 50 Veterans Day cards. I have a local friend that joins me and makes half of them, so my goal every year is to make at least 25 cards. I already have this year's cards finished, so all of the cards I make in this video will be set aside for next year and the following. So I've already gone ahead and cut down the pattern paper. I've done a bunch of stamping. I have cardstock ready, card bases ready. I have many of the pieces stored in Spellbinder's Kraft stack trays. I'm using the medium size and also the largest size. I love these trays since they have a lid. And I'll show you all the different pieces real quick. And after I show all of the prepped pieces, I will show a process of how I assemble the card, and I'll also show how I get a card ready for donation. I will be sharing a video in the coming weeks all about donating cards, so this is just a little peek of my process. For sentiment, I'll be using Thank You for Your Service, stamped it on a stitched oval die cut. I selected 6 pattern papers. 5 of them I'll use for the background, and the red wood grain pattern I cut some narrow strips that I'll be putting across the card. So here's a look at the larger size of Spellbinder's Kraft stack trays. It's double the size of the medium tray. I also have a bunch of banners, and those are from a Paper Rose die set. And I will have all of the products linked below. So I'll start off by stamping a background using the Land of the Free stamp. Since this is a red rubber stamp, I'm using my regular size MISTI, but I did pull out the foam piece. I put a scrap piece of white cardstock in the MISTI. Since this stamp, once it's all inked, it's larger than an A2 size panel. I stamped the image on Kraft cardstock, and the ink color I used is Catherine Pooler's Juniper Mist. Nice dark blue color. Now that cardstock panel was a full A2 size. I will be cutting it down to 4 inches by 5.25 inches. And that's the same size I have for the pattern paper. Once the 2 pieces are the same size, I'll hold them together, place them in my trimmer, and I'm cutting them at an angle. So the background of my card will feature the stamp piece and also some of the pattern paper. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can get a closer look at the card assembly. I'll grab the Kraft stack tray that has all of the pieces for the card. Here's a look at the sentiment. I'll set that aside for now though. I'll work on the background first. I'll add the stamp piece and the pattern paper piece on some blue cardstock. And this dark blue cardstock is from Cartabella, and it has this really nice linen texture finish on it. I'll add the pattern paper piece down first. The cardstock piece is A2 size, so it's 1/4 of an inch larger than my background. Now I'll add the stamp piece at the top. There'll be a slight gap between the two, but that's okay since I will be covering it up. The red wood grain piece is about 3/8 of an inch. I left it the full 8.5 inches long. I'll put double-sided adhesive tape on the back, cover up that gap so I'm adhering it at an angle. Then I'll flip over this panel, use a pair of scissors, and trim off the overhang. If I was adhering this strip straight across the card, I would be able to get 2 pieces, but since I'm adhering it at an angle, I'm not able to get 2 pieces. Although you could keep the scraps and adhere them down since I will be covering up an area. But I found it easier to just cut a bunch of the narrow strips. For a little bit of contrast and shine around the red wood grain pattern paper, I'm adding some Love from Lizzie peel-offs. This is the gold color in the pinstripe style, and I'm using the widest width. This sheet had a bunch of small scrap pieces, and this is the perfect card to use up some of those tiny pieces, since I'll be covering the area on the left side with a sentiment. I'll wrap the ends around the back, put ATG tape on the back, and add my card front onto a card base. Now I'll set aside the card and work on the sentiment. Since I've already stamped it out, I just need to adhere 2 oval die cuts together. And the oval die set I used is from Love from Lizzie. She offers a great variety of nested shaped dies that have that fun stitch detail. And each set includes quite a few sizes, so it's perfect for layering. I'll put barely art glue on the back of the sentiment oval and adhere it on the blue oval. And this blue cardstock is the same color I use for the background. After adhering those 2 pieces together, I will pop it up with foam dimension, using scrapbook.com's 1/4 inch foam in the 1mm thickness, so it doesn't add a lot of extra dimension. Although since I do donate the cards to a local retirement home, I could add thicker dimension, but the 1mm is my favorite. Scrapbook.com's foam is available in several different shapes and sizes, squares, circles, but I love using the foam roll since you can easily customize the pieces. The release paper also comes off very easily, and I've used some brands where I struggle to get that removed. Now I'll add the sentiment on the left side of the card, covering up that gap of the peel-offs. I will add a narrow strip of the leftover pattern paper on the inside of the card, just for a little extra detail. And for a final finishing touch, I'll add a banner in the upper right-hand corner. This is from Paper Rose Studio. It's a little longer than I want, so I'll first hold it up to the card, flip it over, trim off the extra. Now I'll put barely art glue on the back and adhere it in place. Overall, a very simple card design, but it's also easy to mass produce. With the leftover stamp piece and pattern paper piece, I assembled another card. Same design, just reverse those 2 pieces. Since the cards are being hand delivered and not sent through the mail, I could add bling, but I decided to leave them as is. So after my cards are made that are going to retirement home residents, I'll stamp on the back, and this is a custom-made stamp. Has some lovely tulips, and these were actually drawn by my daughter, and then I have handmade by Kristie. The cards I give to the retirement home are happy mail for the residents, so I do add a message on the inside. I also stamp a sentiment. I'll select another stamp from Honeybee Stamps because of the Brave set. I chose in honor of our veterans since this is a Veterans Day card. I'll get it set up in my MISTI, so once I have it set up, I can quickly stamp the rest of the cards. When it's time for me to fill out the cards, I do a big mass production day, all of the stamping and writing the messages on the inside. For ink, I'll be using Honeybee Stamps Intense Black ink. This is my favorite ink for stamping sentiments. You get nice crisp stamping and the ink dries quickly. I will ink up the stamp several times to get a nice solid impression. So the next step in my process is handwriting a message, and I'll write the same message inside every card. I also save that message in a file on my computer, and I will write the same message every single year. For some occasions, I have changed up the message after a few years. Although I don't think the residents will pull out the Veterans Day card I gave them last year to compare and see if I wrote the same thing. I would never remember if someone wrote the same message in my birthday card every single year unless I compared the two. The message I like to write for Veterans Day cards is, "Thank you for your service to our country. My family and I are truly grateful for all the sacrifices you made to protect our freedoms, and I only sign my first name." I don't give the cards for acknowledgement. I give them to hopefully brighten up someone's day. For all of the cards I donate, I do include an envelope. The cards going to the retirement home, I'll stamp either a sentiment or just a single image on the front of the envelope. That way the coordinator at the retirement home knows what occasion this card is for. And the silhouette soldier image I use for Veterans Day card is from Jaded Blossom's Stars and Stripes Candies stamp set. I never use the adhesive on the envelopes for the retirement home cards since it can be harder to open. So instead I close them with some cute washi tape. And this washi tape is from Doodlebug Design. And once I have the requested number of cards, it can vary from year to year. I always check in with the activity coordinator. Since I don't want to leave any of the residents out, I'll put all of the cards in a box and drop them off at the retirement home. And I let the activity coordinator pass them out. Since some retirement homes have different restrictions of who can come in and visit, and I also don't know who the veterans are at the home. I always recommend keeping in contact with the activity coordinator. That way you know how many cards to bring and what card themes they're requesting. It's also a good idea to check and see if there are any card guidelines. Some places don't want any glitter on their cards. Maybe they don't want any bling. It's always just a good idea to check. I made a total of 40 Veterans Day cards. I'm so excited to get a head start for next year. Last year, there were too many times where I was working on cards just a few days before the holiday, and I don't want that to ever happen again since I would be so sad if I missed that holiday to bring cards. So this year, I worked really hard to get ahead, and I'll do the same thing next year. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links in the description box below. And coming soon, I will be sharing a donation video where I talk all about not just donating cards to retirement homes, but also other organizations, getting the cards prepped, what I write on the inside. If you have any questions you want me to address, please leave them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.